Welcome to yet another edition of the High School Football Roundup podcast on the Southwest Georgia Network. I'm Walter Johnson, and for the next few minutes, we're going to talk high school football in Southwest Georgia. And here's what you're going to hear tonight in a brief update on how the aftermath of Hurricane Irma has affected high school football schedules in Southwest Georgia, and I'll also have a quick wrap up of Week 5 action, and then a quick look ahead to Week 6. So a lot of things to talk about tonight. So not much time to waste. Let's get started. So, as I mentioned at the top of the show, and as I mentioned at the top of tonight's program, and we had a quick look at how Hurricane Irma has affected the shuffling of high school football schedules here in Southwest Georgia, especially around the Albany area, and then a little bit in places further away, and starting here in Albany, and the Doherty Trojans were supposed to play host to Spencer out of Columbus last Thursday, which was on September 14th of 2017, but because of the effects of Hurricane Irma, that game was moved to Saturday afternoon at Hugh Stadium, in a rare Saturday afternoon game at the Sink at Hugh Stadium. And for those people that aren't familiar with Hugh Stadium in Albany, especially for you first-time listeners out there, and Hugh Stadium was created in 1936 from a natural bowl or a lime sink, hence the term the Sink. But in any case, Doherty struggled to its third straight loss as they lose to Spencer out of Columbus. Final score 28-13, and Spencer with the win, and the loss dropped Doherty's record to 1-4 on the season. So it'd be interesting to see how this Doherty team responds. And actually, Doherty has the week off. And so Doherty has the week off, and we'll return to action on Thursday, September 28th, to face the Perry Panthers out of Perry, Georgia. It's 26-13, and it was Doherty losing to Spencer, and a double-digit loss for Doherty. So Doherty, obviously could use the time off, and see in another game that was moved to Saturday due to the effects of Hurricane Irma, and Cook took on Berrien at Berrien, and let's see, according to the Georgia High School Football Historians Association, according to the Georgia High School Football Historians Association at ghsfha.org, and it was the Hornets, Cook High School out of Adel, Georgia, still looking for win number 1 on the 2017 season after losing 21-9 to Class AA Berrien, and Berrien, ironically, defeated Doherty in a low-scoring game, 14-7. So, and there's one common opponent for Cook as well as Doherty, which would be one common opponent for Doherty and Cook, which would be Berrien. And Berrien's now 3-2 on the season. and we'll travel to Early County next week. And then so I think not only has not only does the Georgia High School Football Historians Association report that Berrien defeated Cook 21-9, and I think and the Georgia High School Football Daily Newsletter also reported the final score of Berrien 21, Cook 9 under Saturday's games, and in the Monday issue of Georgia High School Football Daily Newsletter, and it's a free subscription, by the way, to the Georgia High School Football Daily Newsletter. So if you haven't done so already, please sign up for that, and just simply enter your email address, and if you're listening, you can just do that. You can do that right now while you're listening on the Southwest Georgia Network YouTube channel, and by the next morning, you should get it. So, and Doherty and Spencer wasn't the only game that was affected by the weather, and the Crisp County Cougars were expected to and the Crisp County Cougars were scheduled to play against Crisp County Cougars were scheduled to play against Rutland out of Macon in Middle Georgia, but Hurricane Irma, the lingering effects of Hurricane Irma, and led to the cancellation of that contest. And also, you had the Coffee Trojans out of Douglas, Georgia, and Southeast Georgia, and they're scheduled to play host to Rockdale County, and about an hour or so east of Atlanta in Conyers, Georgia. But that game has been postponed until October 7th. And Purple Hurricanes are off again this week, and their next game is against Tift County on September 29th, and last Friday night in September. And also, you had Coffee out of Southeast Georgia, and was supposed to play host to University Christian out of Jacksonville, Florida. But that game has been canceled, will not be made up. And a game that could prove to be key in GHSA Region 2 Single A between the Lanier County Bulldogs and the Wilcox County Patriots out of Rochelle, Georgia, just east of Cordele. And that game has been postponed until October 5th in a rare Thursday night game. And I see another big game in north side of Warner Robins in Ware County. In north side of Warner Robins, a member of GHSA Region 1-4A, was scheduled to travel down to Waycross, Georgia to take on the Ware County Gators. And, and again, your Hurricane Irma proved to be a big factor, and that game has been postponed until this Friday, September 22nd. And that date's coming up quickly. And let's see, I'm thinking Cook and Berrien. Let's see, I think I read an article, read a couple of articles somewhere online that the Cook Berrien game was postponed until October 27th, I believe. And that could you better see. I'm thinking, however, and Georgia High School Football Daily had that contest postponed until October 27th, but somehow they got that game in on Saturday, and Berrien defeated Cook 21-9. And Berrien, if that's the case, Berrien is now 3-2 overall, and Cook still winless at 0-4. And we're gonna move right along. Yeah, let's move right along to some of the action that games that were actually played. Played as scheduled last week for the week of Friday, September 15th, 2017 or 2017. And probably good place to start will be at Hugh Mill Stadium in Albany on Friday, September 15th. And the Westover Patriots looked very impressive in a 40-13. But struggled mightily against the American Sumter Panthers, who came in at 1-2 overall. And Westover came in at 2-1. And so I think there's this misconception. There's this belief here because one team is 2-1, the other team's 1-2 overall. Yeah, a lot of people mistakenly think that the 2-1 team has the advantage, but that's not the case, and wasn't the case last Friday. It seemed like American Sumter came ready to play, and Westover not so much. And it's not like American Sumter lost to some slouch teams, and the Panthers lost to Crisp County. Came in undefeated at 3-0, and you got Lee County ranked number 2 in Class 6A, according to the Georgia High School Football Daily Poll. Lee County is a gaudy 5-0 after a 57-7 win last week. And more on Lee County in just a moment. And you're seeing the Patriots apparently just seem to be out of it. I think they were intercepted 3 times, as a matter of fact. And once again, the final score. Once again, the final score. 20 American Sumter 21, Westover nothing. And both teams are now 2-2 overall. But more importantly for American Sumter, they go to 1-0 in GHSA Region 1-4A, while Westover falls to 0-1 in GHSA Region 1-4A. And now we move on to the Lee County Trojans, who ran their record to 5-0 overall after running all over Luella, 57-7. And Sean Kimbrough scored 4 touchdowns on 7 carries, and Ty Mayo and Eric Price each returned fumble recoveries for touchdowns. And the score was 47-7 at halftime. And not even close. I think it was tied at 7. It was tied at 7-7 at one point during that contest. And Mayo's fumble recovery, which was returned 35 yards for a touchdown, marked the 3rd game in a row in which he scored. And Price's fumble recovery for scoop 6, if you will, was returned 20 yards. And an excellent performance for Lee County on defense. And Lee County had 11 tackles for losses, where Price and freshman Baron Hobson each having 3 apiece. And amazing. And moving right along. And how about the Thomasville Bulldogs? And Thomasville, and now sitting at 4-0 on the season after rolling all over Worth County and Sylvester last Friday night. And the 76 points were the most for Thomasville since 81-0 victory over Pelham, and which happened way back in 1927. 1927. I mean, that was 90 years ago. I mean, talk about ancient history there. I mean, talk about it's been a long, long time since any Thomasville team scored at least 70 or more points. It's also the second most ever in the illustrious history of that program. You're talking about a program that's won over 7 games. You're talking about a program that's had football since program that's had football since way back in 1914. Let's see, and Thomasville had 350 yards of total offense in the first half, 583 for the entire game. J.T. Rice had over 280 yards passing. Sophomore wide receiver Kevin Cochran had 3 catches for over 120 yards. He even returned a kickoff for a touchdown. And there was also a forced fumble and an intercepted pass in that game. So big win there. Also, you had Cairo struggling against Hardaway to open GHSA Region 1 4A play. And the Surrey Makers pulled out a 9-7 win. And so Cairo also sits at 500 overall at 2 wins and 2 losses. But more importantly, they go to 1-0 in GHSA Region 1 4A action. And see, and one of the ugliest games of the week came in Bainbridge, Georgia, where the Bainbridge Bearcats have now reeled off 3 wins in a row after crushing Class AA Early County 43-0. I mean that, so now big win for Bainbridge tonight. Bainbridge. And see Bainbridge, I think Bainbridge will be right in the thick of things in GHSA Region 1 5A. And see, Bainbridge has been a big surprise at 3-1 overall. Only lost so far coming to Lee County, and Warner Robinson at 4-0. Having the Fromm twins, Dylan and Tyler, on the lineup. And see, Harris County is 2-2. Harris County, Thomas County Central, both 2-2 overall. And veterans out of Kathleen, Georgia, also in Houston County at 2-3 overall. And Harris County fell to Perry in a low-scoring game. Not a high-scoring game, a real thriller, 49-46. And see, only mention that game because Perry will be Darty's next opponent when the Trojans come back for their bye week on September 28th. And Harris County is in Region 1 5A with Warner veterans and Warner Robins in Middle Georgia, plus Bainbridge and Thomas County Central in Southwest Georgia. And also some other scores in Miller County, rolling all over Baconton Community Charter School, 37-7. And Mitchell County outlasting Chattahoochee County up in Casita, Georgia, right near Fort Benning. The final score, 33-20. And let's see, and the Pelham Hornets. Pelham Hornets. That's a Hornets just absolutely pummeled the Calhoun County Cougars, 49-13. The final score there. And see the defending GHSA Region 1 Single A champions improved to 3-1 overall and 3-0 in GHSA Region 1 Single A. In both Mitchell County and Pelham, the two longtime rivals, and both 3-0 in the region as well, undefeated in region play. And Randolph Clay, also unbeaten in the region at 2-0 and 2-1 overall. I mean, right in the thick of things as well. And speaking of the Red Devils, and they stomped Stewart County 48-24, the final score in that contest. And not only I think this is going to be a very, 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 very tight race in Region 1 Single A. I mean, I would not be surprised if that happened. I mean, if it came down to the final week of the regular season, not only fighting for a region title, but also fighting for 24 playoff berths in Class Single A public schools, the Class Single A public school classification, and have Seminole County winning over Terrell County, final score 36-22. And the jury's still out on Seminole County. Yes, Seminole County right in there, 2-2 in 2-2 overall, 2-1 in region, and we're three-way tie for fourth place with Miller County and Chattahoochee County. And Terrell County still looking for win number 1, 0-3 in Region 1 Single A action, 0-3 overall. You see, in a game that could have a huge impact on in the power ratings later in the season. In Schley County, with just a minute and 10 seconds to play, outlasted Hawkinsville 24-17. Yeah, Schley County is obviously further away than from many of the schools in the Southwest Georgia Network coverage area, but still, I mean, that was a huge win. Schley County's 2-1. Schley County's 2-1 overall, and they're 1-0 in GHSA Region 4 Single A, Sub-Region B or Division B. You see in Division A or Subdivision A is it's close. It's West Central Georgia. It's closer to Columbus and surrounding areas, and or Division B or Sub-Region B is more Middle Georgia. Middle Georgia, a lot of small towns, and so looks like it's gonna be a competitive race in Region 4 Single A, and how about some other games of interest? Probably the most surprising result of last weekend came up in Snellville, Georgia, where Brookwood handed Colquitt County for their first loss of the season, and a stunning 45-22 upset. And Colquitt County came in undefeated at 4-0, and ranked number 2 in the state in Class 7A, and that's the largest classification, and according to the Georgia High School Football Daily newsletter. And Brookwood avenged last year's 52-14 blowout loss to the Packers in Moultrie last season. And that loss was very costly for Colquitt County in the rankings, as they as the Packers fell from number 2 to number 7. And then that loss to Colquitt County, the Packers trailed 21-0 in the first quarter and got to within 2 scores at 35-25 in the fourth quarter, but had a punt block late to end its comeback bid. And quarterback Steven Krajewski finished just 12 out of 22 in passing attempts for just 122 yards and sacked 6 times. And so it's a rough night for So a rough night for the Packers. And Tift County is now 5-0 in the season. The Packers are in the rankings for the first time all year after defeating Parkview just up the road from Brookwood up in Lilburn, Georgia. And the Blue Devils finished with 629 yards of total offense. And quarterback Griffin Collier was 14 out of 18 passing for 404 yards and 3 touchdowns. Rashad Bateman had 6 catches for 279 yards. And Mike Jones rushed for over 100 yards and change on 13 carries. And this is Tift County's first ranking by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution for the first time in 10 years. Last time it happened was in 2007. So, and seeing Tift County has a big game next week. This week, I should say, taking on the Coffee Trojans out of Douglas, Georgia. So that's going to be one of the, obviously should be one of the top games, not only here in Southwest, South Central Georgia this week, probably one of the top games in the state, period. And how about some, and then I mentioned earlier, you see in Class 6A, and in the Coffee's game against University Christian of Jacksonville, Florida, was canceled due to Hurricane Irma or Tropical Storm Irma. And by the time it hit land, it went from a little over a week ago, early Monday morning, Monday, September 11th, and it went from a tropical, turned from a hurricane into a tropical storm. And then, with the game against University Christian being canceled, the Trojans out of Douglas, Georgia will turn their focus to Tift County this week. Should be a big game. So, and it'll be interesting to see if they can, if Coffee can get that rust off. And north side of Warner Robins was scheduled to play against Ware County, but it's been postponed to this week. And Ware County 0-2 already. And one of Ware's losses was to Coffee. And let's see find some other interesting final scores from around the area. And how about this score? Dodge County just absolutely destroyed Dooley County, 70-27. Dodge County putting up 70 points against Dooley County, whose Bobcats out of Vienna, Georgia, are now 0-4. And that's unbelievable. Think about a couple years ago, they were in the state championship game, only to lose that contest there. And Irwin County over Clinch County, one of the big games of the year so far in Class Single A, winning 21-7. And how about in Double A, in the 7th-ranked team in Class Double A, according to the Georgia High School Football Daily poll, Brooks County, and he shut out Pierce County 31-0, and Brooks held Pierce to 42 yards, just 42 yards of total offense. Jonathan White rushed for 85 yards on 11 carries, and his 2 third-quarter touchdowns, 2 third-quarter touchdown runs, I should say, put the game away. And so Brooks County is at home against the Monroe Tornadoes from Albany this Friday. And Funds and Lowndes just absolutely laid the hurt on Newton, winning 57-0. I mean, one of those games that was not even close. And Lowndes led 42-0 at halftime. And their per game scoring average is now at almost 56 points. And quarterback Michael Barrett rushed for 150 yards and over 150 yards and 4 touchdowns on 13 carries, and was 5 out of 7 passing, 114 yards and a touchdown. An amazing thing. Michael Barrett passing for just 158 yard passing just 7 times. Had just 7 passing attempts and completed 5 of those for just barely over 110 yards. And defensively for Lowndes, Tyson Shaw had 8 solo tackles and 3 of those for losses. And Lowndes will try to go to 5-0 this Friday against Shiloh out of Gwinnett County. Let's see, Gwinnett County's got a lot of schools up there. Not bad for a county with a population of around 900,000 residents, just northeast of Atlanta. And let's see, and how about this score out of Columbus? And north side of Columbus now 4-0 on the season. And after edging Carver of Columbus 23-20. And here's and north side of Columbus and now sits at 4-0 on the season. And but more importantly, they're in a 3-way tie for first place in GHSA Region 1-4A with Cairo and American Sumter. On all 3 of those teams are 1-0 in Region 1-4A action. And north side of Columbus is back in action. You see, north side of Columbus is back in action this week, taking on American Sumter, and that game will be played in Americus this week. Already looking at a battle for at least a share of first place in GHSA Region 1-4A. So speaking of which, we're gonna take a look at we're gonna wrap up this edition of the Georgia High School Football RoundUp podcast by taking a look at some of the top games in our area for this week, the week of Friday, September 22nd, 2017. We'll start with Westover, going on the road to take on Carver of Columbus, and obviously this game doesn't feel like a must-win game or feel like a playoff game for Westover, but it is. You're thinking, well, 0-1, it's just one game. You think it's not a game that presents itself as a must-win for both teams, especially for Westover, but it is. In a region that has 8 teams, Region 1-4A, with 5 of those teams from the Columbus area, that one city. That margin for error is small. And once you, and the margin for error, once you get into region play, is very small to begin with, no matter how many teams are in that league. But once you get into region play, that margin for error gets even smaller if you lose that first region game. And think for Westover, that margin for error, it's gotten the margin for error for Westover got very, very, very small after last week's loss to American Sumter. Doesn't get it. And you still have to face Hardaway, and then 3 straight road games. You see, after after Carver Columbus, I should say, and they host Hardaway to end the month of September, then bye week, and then on Friday the 13th, and they travel to Columbus to face Columbus High for the first of 3 straight road games. And And then at Cairo on October 20th against Shaw of Columbus. And a Thursday night game on October 26th. And wrap up the regular season on November 3rd against Northside of Columbus. And like I said, and seeing Westover finish 5-5 overall, and 3-4 in GHSA Region 1-4A, and finished just shy of making the playoffs last year. You see in that middle of the pack, you see Cairo finished Region 1-4A play undefeated at 7-0 and 9-1 in the regular season, 11-2 overall. Carver Columbus 5-2, 6-4, 7-5. Northside Columbus. Then there's the middle of the pack. Northside Columbus 4-3, 6-4, 6-5. American Sumter 4-3, 5-5, 5-6. And then other side, Hardaway and Westover both finished 3-4 in the region. And Hardaway finished 5-4 overall on the outside looking in as far as the playoffs were concerned. And Westover finished 5-5 overall. And then bringing up the rear for last year's standings, Columbus 2-5 in the region, 3-7 overall. Shaw went winless in Region 1-4A play and 1-9 overall. I think so. And let's see, looking at 2016's results real fast, and ironically, Westover fell at American Sumter by an almost similar score of 21-6 last year, and then upset Carver Columbus, won and beat Hardaway, and then lost 3 straight games, starting with that loss to Columbus, 49-20 on October 14th of last year. And I think that really started, and that's when Westover really, I think that loss to Columbus High really started Westover on a downward spiral that eventually cost them a trip to the playoffs. And that's something, Westover, and head coach Octavia Jones hoped to avoid. And the Monroe Tornado moving right along. You got the Monroe Tornadoes after taking last week off. Will return to action, and this will return to action this Friday evening, September 22nd, traveling to Quitman, Georgia, to take on the Brooks County Trojans. And it seemed like Monroe's taking advantage of that time away from playing, and then because ever since the Tornadoes lost that heartbreaker to Thomas County Central 33-32, a real shootout on Thursday, September 7th at Hugh Stadium, and you see like Monroe's used that time off wisely, or at least. And hopefully that will be the case for Monroe and head coach Charles Truitt. And then they use that time to, hopefully get healthy to heal some wounds. Obviously doesn't get any easier to face a Brooks County team. That's always strong as usual under veteran head coach Maurice Freeman. And Brooks sitting at 3-0 already. And Brooks County's already pitched a pair of shutouts. And I mentioned earlier in the program, they shut out Cook 21-0 and won a thriller over Clinch County 17-14 just last week. They shut out Pierce County 31-0. Obviously Monroe's got their work cut out for them this week and the week thereafter, traveling to Berrien in a game that was a replacement for Albany High School and back on June 6th. For those people that don't know, and those people that don't know, the Albany High School was closed by the Dougherty County Board of Education, effective immediately, and a 4-3 vote. And this after 131 years of operation. And as a result of that, in the other 3 schools, Dougherty, Monroe, and Westover, as well as the 5 schools in GHSA Region 1AA, had to revamp their schedules. And as a result of that, Monroe will play at Berrien down in Nashville, Georgia on Friday, September 29th. But for this week, Monroe will go head to Brooks County. And Dougherty has the week off. And I'm sure the Trojans from Albany could use that off week. And they've struggled mightily. And not only get the last several weeks and losing a heartbreaker to Berrien 14-7, and then being held to 13 points and losses to Westover 30-14, and to Spencer 26-13. And they'll return and they're back in action against Perry on Thursday, September 28th, in Thursday night football at Hugh Mills Stadium. And sure, Dougherty could use that time off wisely. And another team that could use a well-deserved week off is 20 miles plus miles to the east of Albany in Sylvester, Georgia, in the Worth County Rams. And the Rams really took it on the chin against the Thomasville Bulldogs, losing 76-20. It seems like it's been tough adjusting to a new head coach and Ben Simmons. And every time there's a coaching change, you expect to struggle, but I mean, not like this. And all of Worth County's losses have been by double digits, and the Rams will return to action on Friday, September 29th, traveling to Hamilton, Georgia, sandwiched right in between Columbus and LaGrange in West Central Georgia, to take on the Harris County Tigers. And you see, like Region 1 AAA as a whole. I mean, you take away 3-0 Crisp County, and it's just been really bad, for that region. You see, if you add Crisp County's 3-0 record and 5 teams in that region so far in non-region play, in a combined 5 wins against 15 losses. And if you take away that one loss, if it is indeed true that Cook's game against Berrien will be delayed and been postponed until October 27th, and take away that game against Berrien, and the combined mark shrinks slightly to 5-14. If you take away Crisp County's 3-0 overall record, and then it really gets horrible as far as non-region records. And Monroe 1-2, Dougherty 1-4, Cook County 0-3 or 0-4 overall, depending on whom you believe, which media outlet you rely on the most. And Worth County at 0-5. You got 2 winless teams there. And ironically, Cook and Worth County will open region play in Sylvester on October 6th. And while Dougherty will face Monroe at Hugh Mills Stadium that same night. which means Crystal County will have a bye in that week. And you take away Crystal County's 3-0 overall record, and and the combined overall record for Monroe and Doherty, Cook and Worth County comes to a dismal 2-15, 2-15, 2-15, or if Cook is 0-3, that would make it like 2-14. Either way, I mean, it's not looking good. I think about the only saving grace, for that, only saving grace for that region, and is only saving grace for Region 1 AAA. At least there's region play coming up in October, and then any of those. I mean, once you get into region play, I mean, everybody starts 0-0 like it is now, and then it's like that old saying goes: it's not how you start, but how you finish. And moving on, and some other games for this week, and got Lee County playing their first true road game of the season, and hitting the road to Thomasville, Georgia, to take on the Thomas County Central Yellow Jackets in the final non-region contest for both teams. Final non-region contest for both teams. Well, not quite the final non-region contest for Lee County, but not for Thomas County Central. And the Yellow Jackets still have another Region 1 6A opponent in Valdosta over at Bazemore Higher Stadium at Cleveland Field. And so there's a chance for the Yellow Jackets facing their toughest opponent to date. And Lee County will try to move to 6-0 on the season. And traveling to face a tough opponent. And I see some other games of interest here. You see here in Southwest Georgia. And I see in and you're listening to the time is now 9:03 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And just past the top of the hour, now 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Tuesday, September 19th, 2017. You're listening to the High School Football Roundup podcast on the Southwest Georgia Network, online at southwestgeorgianetwork.com, and you can follow on Twitter at SWGA Network. And also, if you would like, you can also subscribe to the Southwest Georgia Network YouTube channel just by clicking on the link. And just click on the link. And just remember to click subscribe. Click the red button to subscribe, and then after that you'll hear a bell. You'll see a bell. Then you click the bell, and you'll be notified on any new videos. And if you choose, and remember to follow the Southwest Georgia Network on Twitter at SWGA Network. And we're just gonna see some other games this week that are involving teams close to home. And Thomasville 4-0, looking to go to 5-0, trying to continue their amazing hot start to the 2017 season. traveling to Adel, Georgia to take on Cook. And so far, in their 4 games, Thomasville has held its opponents to single digits for points. Crushed Cairo 37-8, trounced Thomas County Central 41-7, rolled all over Monroe of Albany, the Tornadoes 45-7, and then last week's win was 76-20 at Worth County. So it'll be interesting to see how this Thomasville team will fare against the Cook team, and it's off to a winless start at 0-3 or 0-4. And then after a bye week, they opened GHSA Region 1AA action at Berrien. And let's see, in the Early County, and had a 2-game winning streak. Snapped to the Bainbridge, losing 43-0. And the Bobcats will welcome Berrien to open GHSA Region 1-4A play. And so the Bobcats are 2-2 under new head coach Joel Harvin, who replaced Trey Wolf, who retired at the end of last season. And then, so already, so September's not even over yet, and already Region 1AA play has started. And thanks to the sudden closure of Albany High School, and a lot of teams had to revamp their schedules, and Early County was one of those. Opened the season with a 42-20 loss at home to Eufaula, Alabama, and they'll close the regular season with another non-region out-of-state contest, playing host to Dothan, Alabama, Dothan High School in Dothan, Alabama. So Early County, sitting at 2-2 overall, and looking to get a leg up on the Region 1AA race this year. And looking at some of the single A games of interest this week. Just looking at some of the single A action in Region 1. Mitchell County is at home against Terrell County. And the Eagles are looking to maintain at least a share of first place in GHSA Region 1 Single A. I guess the Terrell County team is yet to crack the win column in 2017. And Pelham is at Miller County. And the Pelham Hornets, 3-1 overall. And the Hornets lost their only game so far to Westover, and Mitchell County also has something in common with Pelham, ironically, and both teams losing to a couple of teams from Albany. Pelham lost to Westover at the beginning of the season, and by a touchdown, and Mitchell County losing in the closing seconds to visiting Doherty on Saturday, August 26th. And Pelham will hit the road to face Miller County. And I think another game and what should be a tight GHSA Region 1 Single A race. Not only fighting for a region championship, but just as importantly, fighting for to finish in the top 24 in the final power rankings in GHSA Class Single A and the GHSA Class Single A public school sub-classification, if you will. You see, Pelham's only loss came at the beginning of the season, August 28th, losing a heartbreaker to Westover, 35-28. And the Hornets have reeled off 3 straight wins since then. And since then, the number of points have increased incrementally, shutting out Baconton Charter 47-0, trouncing Terrell County 48-0. And last week, a 49-13 rout of Calhoun County, and Pelham going to Miller County this week. And then, and how about this game this Friday, I should say, down in Donaldsonville, Georgia. Donaldsonville, only 1D at the beginning. And Seminole County plays host to Randolph Clay. Randolph Clay is 2 undefeated in Region 1 single A action at 2-0 and 2-1 overall. Seminole County 2-1 in the region, 2-2 overall. And in Seminole County, under head coach Wes Williams opened the season with a 42-15 rout over Stewart County, but lost back-to-back games. Lost a tough win to Early County, 27-26, and then lost another heartbreaker at home to Chattahoochee County, 35-30 in Chattahoochee County. Sitting at 2-1 in the region, 2-2 overall. And would not be surprised that the race for the region title came down to then some came down to the final week of the season. Also, you got Baconton Charter, and off this week, Patala Charter out of Edison, Georgia, 0-3 on the season, and one of their games against North Bay Haven Academy out of Panama City was canceled, of course, due to the storms, due to Hurricane Irma. And last week, they lost 16-0 to Robert F. Monroe. That's Monroe with a U and an O, spelled M-U-N-R-O-E, as opposed to M-O-N-R-O-E, out of Quincy, Florida. 16-0. And Patala Charters yet to record a win, and not only had the Panthers out of Edison, Georgia, not win a game. They've also yet to score a point this season, being shut out 46-0 by Baconton Charter and 42-0 by Ocilla Christian out of Monticello, Florida. Ocilla spelled A-U-C-I-L-L-A. And then the 16-0 loss to Robert F. Monroe from Quincy, Florida. And Calhoun County, 0-3 in the region, 0-3 overall, I should say, and also winning some region play at 0-2. And the Cougars from out of Edison, Georgia, will face Stewart County this Friday. And seeing Stewart County is 1-3 overall, but winless in region play at 0-3. Stewart County's only win so far came against Glasscock County in a non-region contest, 50-27. And obviously for Calhoun County, a win would just be a huge, huge confidence booster. And you see the private schools here. In Deerfield, Windsor, 22-14 loser to Pinewood Christian last week over in the little town of Belleville, Georgia, close to Claxton, and right near Glenville with 2 wins. And the 22-14 Deerfield, Windsor, a loser, and it doesn't get any easier for the Knights, and they'll head to just outside of Birmingham, Alabama, to take on Bessemer Academy in their final non-region contest before they jump right into GISA Region 3 AAA play, hosting Southland Academy. Already off to a 5-0 start. Best start for that program in a long, long, long time. And Saturday, and Southland will be on the road to face Holy Spirit Prep. And that's on Saturday night in Atlanta. The Tift area 4-1. It was the last time a Tift area team started off with 4 wins in 5 games. And that's got to be one of the top games in Tift area. At 4-1 overall, their only loss was to Gatewood on September 1st, 55-14. And Tift area goes to Southland this week to open the GISA Region 3 AAA schedule for 2017. And that's got to be one of the top games in the GISA this week. Tift area against Southland up in Americus, Georgia. It's in thinking the battle for playoff positioning should be very intense in 2017. Let's see elsewhere in GISA Region 3 AAA. Valwood at 3-2 overall. And hosts Brookwood of Thomasville, Georgia, to open the Region 3 AAA, GISA Region 3 AAA action. And keep in mind the regular season. You see, in just a couple of years ago, Valwood out of Valdosta rallied to defeat Deerfield Windsor from right here in Albany, and win the GISA Region 3 AAA title. And I lost my place there. And let's see. And how about some of the teams here in the GISA Region 3 AA? Only 3 teams in that region. Southwest Georgia Academy in Damascus, Georgia, near Blakely. Terrell Academy in Dawson, Georgia, 20 plus miles northwest of Albany, and 20 plus miles south of Albany, southeast of Albany. Westwood School in Camilla, Georgia, and Southwest Georgia Academy faces off against Westwood this week. And that's in the first of only 2 region games in this week. And Terrell Academy on the road against Flint River Academy, and that's in Woodbury, Georgia. And so, despite the name of Flint River, it's not anywhere in southwest Georgia. It's in west central Georgia, tiny town Woodbury, Meriwether County, which is roughly halfway between Atlanta and Columbus, and just slightly east of LaGrange. Terrell Academy 1-4 overall, and their only win so far came back on August 25th against the Heritage School out of Newnan, Georgia. And to wrap up in some other games of interest, you mentioned earlier, Coffee at 3-0 overall before their game against University Christian of Jacksonville, Florida, being canceled last week, going to Tift County. I mean, that should be a really good game. Battle of undefeated teams. It's too bad one of them will have to lose. I mean, like the saying goes, something has to give. And last, but certainly not least, and you got the 4-1 Colquitt County Packers, looking to bounce back from that season, from their first loss of the season, losing to Brookwood out of Snellville, Georgia, in Gwinnett County, Metro Atlanta, 42-25, playing host to the 1-3 Valdosta Wildcats, who are the defending GSSA Region 1-6A champions. And so it'll be interesting to see how Colquitt County responds after losing a tough game, and Valdosta's only loss only loss of last season came at home to Colquitt County, en route to winning the Class 6A state title. And then it seemed like that loss to Colquitt County last year proved to be the wake-up call the Wildcats needed to continue on that march to a state title. And that could prove to be the same thing for Colquitt County against Valdosta down at MacTharp Stadium in Moultrie. On that note, that's going to conclude this edition of the High School Football Roundup podcast. And this has been your host, Walter Johnson, reminding you the Southwest Georgia Network website is available online at southwestgeorgianetwork.com. Have podcasts and printed articles there. And also follow on Twitter at SWGA Network. And also there's a link to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Remember to click the red button, red, long, red, and wide rectangular button to subscribe. And then once you do that, you click on the dark gray colored bell to get all notifications of any videos and any other content, any audio or video related content like this live broadcast. And again, this is Walter Johnson, and I'm thanking you for listening to the High School Football Roundup podcast on the Southwest Georgia Network YouTube channel. Hope to be back just after midnight on Saturday, the 23rd of September. Thank you for listening.